Welcome to our liquid concrete video on facelift and 60W with dye. What you see us doing now is prepping a couple 10-foot panels with a pressure washer and a turbo tip. If you don't have a pressure washer, you could either rent one or use a hose with nozzle, some TSP, and a stiff bristle push broom. That'll do just fine to clean the surface. What you're going to see next will be us mixing up our first batch of facelift. We're adding the Part A and Part B epoxy into a 1-gallon pail. We're now adding brown pigment. We're going to blend that up for approximately 2 to 3 minutes with a 3/8 drill and a typical paddle that you can get at any big box hardware store. Blend that up until the consistency is all the same. Like I said, 2.5, 3 minutes will be just fine. This is a water-based epoxy, and therefore the cleanup is super easy. Once you have this first part of the mixture done, go ahead and put it into a fresh pail of water, run it through, and it cleans up just fine. Next, we're going to be adding in 12 pounds of filler to this 1-gallon kit. This filler has cementitious properties and other fillers in it that give it its strength. As you see, this is our patch version, which is very thick. Once again, clean up your tools after you blend something. It is an epoxy and it will adhere after time and be very difficult to clean later. Now we're pouring this out on the surface. As you can see, it's as thick as cake frosting. We're now going to take our hand trowel and spread this in. Later in the video, you'll see us doing our roll-on version. What we want to do here is show you the two different versions that we have available for use. We're just going to push this into all the different aggregate surface. This is a washed aggregate concrete surface, so we're just making sure that we get clear coating all the way down in through to the aggregate. Once we're done with this panel, we're actually going to come back and spray it with some water about 15-20 minutes later, and we're going to add some texture to this now, meaning we're going to make it look more like a slate type look, slate or terracotta. You'll see later on, once we use the top coat, the 60W with dye, what the advantages are then for having this texture. Once again, just adding texture, some trowel lines, and imperfections. This is our roll-on version of facelift. As you can see, it's a lot thinner than the trowel-on version. Just take a 3/8 paint roller and roll it on the surface. As you can see, we've put some duct tape over the expansion joint area just to protect that area. Because the product is a roll-on version, you have plenty of time to work this product. Then we're going to come back and do the same thing that we did before. We're going to take our trowel and about 15-20 minutes later pull up and actually add some texture. Now what the areas that we pulled up, we came back 5-10 minutes later and we're doing down a knockdown type finish. And this will have a very aggressive look. We came back about 4 or 5 hours later. Now we're going to add the 60W with dye. We're mixing up the Part A and Part B in this 1-gallon pail. You only need to blend this for approximately 2 minutes. Just blend it up with your paddle. Once it turns green, you know you have it fully integrated. Now we will add the dye. A little bit goes a long way. We have a color chart that advises you how much to use for the desired color that you're looking for. Just blend this up for another minute or until you have full integration of color. This too is a water-based epoxy, and the cleanup is simple with just soap and water. In this instance, we didn't use any soap. We just use a fresh pail of water. You'll see us put that into the fresh pail and just circulate it inside the pail, and it cleans right up. Now we're going to pour this into a paint tray, and with a clean roller, we're going to apply the product. We let the base coat cure for approximately 5 hours before we got back on it. You can now begin to see all the different texture that's in the base coat as we apply the dye. We're dragging back a squeegee, and the purpose of the squeegee is to pull off excess product that's on the surface, allowing the 60WN dye to float into the valley areas, if you will, or the textured areas. This will be evident later on in the video when you see how aggressive it is. Aggressive meaning the tones and the colors, whereas it looked like an aggressive slate. Just finishing up this panel. We're applying this at approximately 8 mils thick, so a little bit will go a long way. Next, we're going to go to the skim coat panel, which is the first panel that we did, that we laid down the patch version, if you will, with the trowel. And you'll see there too that it has its hills and valleys. You can begin to see the difference in colors. Where you see the lighter tan color is where the product has been pulled off, and where you have a darker or taupe look is where the 60WN dye has settled. Because it's an epoxy, as the epoxy starts to cure, it takes on a hazy look first. Then as it does cure, it'll cure to its color or desired color and have a semi-gloss look. Now we're on the skim coat panel. You can see that it doesn't have near the aggressive lines that we applied. We're just moving the excess product into the expansion joint area. It will actually act as a sealer inside that expansion joint. As you can see, it's starting to cure, starting to get a little hazy look to it as it does cure. Cure time is approximately 4 hours. Here we are the next morning looking at the aggressive coat that we put on. You can see what we did with the trowel and added all of the different texture to this, and hills and valleys, if you will, in the surface. You can now see what we mean by having the 60WN dye settle in the valleyed areas. This is the skim coat panel. It has more of a slate look. Thank you for watching the video. We hope you like our product.